Hey guys, Happy New Year. We're super excited to kick off our video series for 2021. We thought the best way to kick this whole thing off would be to start at the ground level and build from there. So today, we're starting with the pre-approval process and what that looks like. For me as a realtor working with buyers, this is the most important and crucial first step. That reason being is that it really gives us a starting point. It's the first piece in the puzzle. Once my client and I know what they can afford comfortably, then it's on to what their needs and wants are, and I can move forward with finding something that has what they want and need, and it fits within their budget. So let's jump into the pre-approval process and what that looks like for a potential buyer. So Robert,
Yep.
You have a client and calls you, wants a pre-approval. Where do we start?
Well, it might seem overwhelming, Katie, but it really isn't. It's kind of a question and answer session at the beginning. We'll start to gather some information, ask them about their employment, how long they've been there, how they get paid, if they own a business, some different aspects that are kind of high level, and just to try to get a little bit more information from them.
Gotcha. So you start out by saying, how are you employed? You start with like W-2.
Yeah. So for example, if somebody's employed and they're a W-2 employee, they work for a company, they've been there for a few years, that's obviously pretty straightforward and easy. Every now and then, we run across people that own their own business that's been open for a long time or even a short amount of time. Those are some of the pieces of information that we're going to uncover early on in the process so we can know what to document as we go forward without getting too far or getting ahead of ourselves in any way.
Got it. Cool. So you find out how they get paid, and then you move on to what?
So then I'll start asking them about, their credit history, kind of the price range that they're looking at, a couple different other questions along those lines, like I said, just to get some better information on them.
So credit score, credit history, especially for first-time home buyers, is pretty intimidating. So let's uncover that a little bit more. There's this whole thing around if Robert pulls my credit, it's going to go down 50 points or 100 points. So how do you kind of start with knowing if you should even pull their credit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, there's kind of a stigma, like you said, around credit where it's a big, scary, elephant in the room. But we just kind of ask them what their credit score is just to see what they think or what they have any information on that. A lot of people have a pretty good idea of what that is. Some people use different applications or different places to find out what their credit is, like a Credit Karma, for example, or something through their bank. Most of the time, those are pretty accurate. Sometimes they're a little bit off, but everybody's situation is a little bit different.
Okay.
So if somebody tells me that they have perfect credit, then most of the time they're probably right.
Okay.
If somebody says they might have some issues in their credit history, that's when we'll start to ask a little bit more information before we take that step, of pulling their credit.
Got it. Awesome. So I personally monitor through like my Chase account and Credit Karma, and you're saying that usually if I think my credit score is X based off of what I'm watching on that, it should be fall within that range.
Yeah,
close to it.
It's always very close, and that's definitely a good gauge and a good starting point.
Okay.
Obviously, once we do officially pull your credit by taking an application, then we'll get a full credit report from the 3 bureaus, and then we have all the information that we would need to be able to kind of move forward.
Okay. So once you pull credit, you get the credit report, and what do you look at from there?
So we're going to look at the scores. So there are some minimum credit requirements depending on the loan program that you're in. Typically, you want to see over a 620 credit score for some conventional loan eligibility. There are some options that are potentially lower than that. It just depends, again, on the loan program that you're falling in, and then also sometimes the down payment that's required in that. The other thing that's going to show up on a credit report is the debts in the household. So like car payments or student loan payments or credit cards, whatever that might be.
Okay.
That will give us some information to kind of continue to progress forward, in the pre-approval.
Okay. So you find out credit score, you find out how they're paid and what their income is. You find out some of their debt versus their income and start to kind of build this number that they might be qualified for. So then what's kind of the next step from there? So
then that kind of goes back into the price range that they're looking. So we start to talk a little bit about that number and what they feel, the type of house they want to buy and what that range might look like. So we kind of input that into our system, start to play with the numbers a little bit, and as long as everything is checking out, their credit's in a good range, their income is steady, they have a good steady history over 2 years, we can document that appropriately. and then the debt to income is within the eligibility range, then we really start to get closer to officially, giving the thumbs up on a pre-approval.
Got it. Do you talk to them about mortgage payment and what they're comfortable at? Because you could say, I'm approved for X, but then I want my payment to only be $1,800 a month, so that could really be a big variable in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So not only do we ask them what a number might be that they're looking to purchase, we also kind of want to know what their feel is currently with either a rent payment or their current mortgage payment. So we get an idea of what that number looks like as well. And again, I'm always going to give them all the options. So if they say they want to get pre-approved at a certain amount, I'm going to show them what that example payment might look like. But then if they have a certain monthly payment that they want to be in range with, I'll price that number out and kind of give them an idea of where they'll fall on a purchase price.
Awesome.
So all of those things also kind of depend on down payment as well, which is another level of discussion that we might have.
Okay. And is that how you kind of wrap things up? Once you've got all of it together, know what they're qualified for, then you kind of verify where their down payment's coming from?
Yeah, so once everything looks good on paper on the application, we obviously run our algorithms to make sure we get an approval. Once we get an approved eligible, then we start to gather the documentation to show support of all the information they've given us. So like, for example, pay stubs or W-2s or tax returns depending on the application. Also, we want to secure and know there's enough funds in the bank to show for down payment.
Okay.
So once we have the appropriate documentation, that's when we would be able to issue a pre-approval, assuming everything lines up and is good.
Awesome. And so that's a lot of information. How long does something like this take?
So even though that sounds really scary and like a ton of information, it could be done in 5 to 10 minutes, to be honest with you.
True story. We just did one for an investment property yesterday. He's sitting here.
Yeah, so it can be pretty quick. Now, obviously, if the buyer has to look for information or they have to find the documentation, which is understandable, then we can go as quickly as they're allowing us to. But if they are informed and they have all their information available, it's no problem to do it in 10 minutes. Awesome.
Well, thank you for answering all these questions, and thank you guys for joining us today. If you want to start the pre-approval process, call this guy. If you have any questions about any part of our conversation today, or just want to chat more in depth, feel free to reach out to Robert or I, and we'll meet you wherever you are in the process and see how we can help.
Next month, same place. We'll be here talking all things down payment. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you soon.